On today's Locked On Twins, we take you through the weekend's Grapefruit League action and also have a bit of discussion on a player the Twins may be honing in on signing. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And back at it, back in the lab is Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the tweets. How are we doing, Dave?
What's going on, Twins fans? We're doing fine, Brandon. It's
Good.
Sunday night. We're ready to go.
Well, and want to thank people for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, catch us on YouTube, because if you're watching us on YouTube, you get to see our shining and beautiful faces. But again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We will be eternally grateful. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Dave, I understand you have made the trek to and from the airport today. Am I wrong to assume it's the Kansas City airport?
No, that is the correct one. It's maybe an hour and 5 or 10 minutes away from our house, so it's a little bit of a hike. And when anybody who's a parent, not a parent, but a parent knows, going anywhere with kids in the car, even of a certain age, it requires a certain amount of production. And it's been a long 4 hours, but we did it.
So I haven't been to the KC airport since 2019, so 4+ years. Has it changed much? I know they were working on some stuff, but one thing I really liked about that airport, as someone who's flown out of primarily MSP, is that you literally would do your security check at your gate, which was, I thought, really cool.
Pretty much you'd get out of your car and you'd be on your plane. I don't know how they did it, but it was well, that airport is gone. Last year, they built a new airport. It's an entirely new airport. It looks like an airport that you would see in any other city, which I suppose is good for certain kinds of travelers and maybe people who aren't from Kansas City. But it was nice having the kind of mom and pop airport in Kansas City where you could almost park, and like you're going into the grocery store, you're going into the airport, and then you're right at your gate, and then you're on your plane. Now, everything takes longer. It's further away. Taxiing takes forever. So it's how the other half lives. But I suppose it will be good for business in Kansas City in the long run. But it's a real airport now. It's a grown-up boy. It's not a little kid anymore.
Yeah, it surprised me how small that airport was when I flew in there. But we're not here to talk about airports. We're here to talk about your Minnesota Twins, who are 1-1 in Grapefruit League play, coming off an 8-6 seesaw battle with the Red Sox today in Fort Myers at JetBlue, but Fort Myers all the same. And a few things I want to hone in on. The only Twin with multiple hits was Trevor Larnach. Twins 11 hits on the day, but not a lot of familiar names on the mound for Boston. Started by Lucas Giolito. And no velo readings today, so the rumor that Giolito has got his velocity up was unable to be substantiated. As someone who has watched a lot of Lucas Giolito, what are your expectations for him this year for Boston? Because I honestly cannot figure out what the heck they're doing. Are they going to trade Kenley Jansen? Are they going to keep him? They've got a bunch of money in Trevor Story, but they don't want to pay anybody else. It's Story endeavors, and then it's kind of like, where do you go from there? I can't figure out this team. But first, Lucas Giolito, what do you expect?
Well, I hope that he's back to what he was maybe 3 years ago with the White Sox, but lost some velocity and lost some spin, and He's a guy that works up in the strike zone and was successful in that. It was kind of, I don't know if it was a mini revolution in baseball, but pitchers started to go up in the strike zone. And, when your velocity's not where you want it to be and your location isn't either, that's really dangerous. And so he's a guy that is prone to maybe give up some home runs. But he, as far as we know, these guys from interviewing them or watching them get interviewed, he seems like a good dude. And I wish him all the best. I'm not sure where I don't know where he's at as far as expectations go, but hopefully for him, he'll be better than he was the last 2 years.
Second inning opens with an error, and the Red Sox bring around 5 runs. Only one of them earned, but it was a home run by Rafael Devers off a reliever named John Stankiewicz. I remember Andy Stankiewicz. I think he was an infielder in the early 90s who, for whatever reason, every time I opened a pack of Don Russ 90, was it 92 or 93? It must have been 93 because it had expansion cards for the teams. I feel like I got an Andy Stankiewicz or a Rafael Bornegal in every single pack.
Yeah, that Bornegal sounds almost like a verb or some sort of condition. I don't want to say born again. I don't want to offend anybody, but that's what it reminds me of, like some kind of transformation into a ball player. So I wonder if this is if he is Andy Stankiewicz's son. I don't know. I'm not sure. He might be. Let's just say he is, just for old time's sake.
Andy Stankiewicz, currently the head coach of USC. So that's a good
gig. That's who you want to be coaching for.
Yeah. They have 4 kids named Drew, Marissa, Dane, and Mia. So Drew, Dane, Andy at Grand Canyon. I don't know. What do we say his name was again? John? No, nope, doesn't sound like it then. Anyhow, damage done against him. Otherwise, Bailey Ober 4 runs, all unearned. Here's something I'm watching from this game. Positioning, Nico Goodrum played shortstop. Now, I know we're going to talk about the Twins' interest in another position player, but I feel like Goodrum is the most likely of the non-roster guys to make the team. And if he's playing short and then moving around a bit more, it'll be curious to see because, again, he hits left-handed pitching. It's like the only thing he's done consistently. But in addition to that, and again, these are extremely small sample sizes. I can't emphasize enough how few of the players who pitched for the Red Sox that even I have heard of. Like, for instance, the Twins scored 5 runs in a 3rd inning against a guy named Ryan Zephyr-John. I do not know who Ryan Zephyr-John is.
Is that a Marvel bad guy? Zephyr-John? Yeah. Sounds like some kind of shenanigans going on there with Hulk and
I think so. But Jordan Balazovic struck out 2 in his inning of work. And I felt like the one thing Balazovic did not do as much as I had hoped was get strikeouts last year. He's off the roster now, so he'll have to be at it again if he's ever going to resurface with the Twins. But I don't know. I mean, Jay Jackson pitched. I guess his slider looked pretty good. Cody Funder down under had a scoreless inning. But Balazovic scoreless inning with a pair of strikeouts. I'm going to be watching closely because if he gets any sort of swing and miss, I think he becomes immensely more interesting for when the Twins inevitably dip into their pitching depth.
It's, he's kind of an intriguing dude because he was exposed, not in the pants way, not in the Fanatics pants way, but in anybody could have taken him, and they got him back. So that's
almost surprisingly.
Yes. Maybe people kind of said, well, maybe that's what the league thinks of him if they're not going to pick him up for a free look. But maybe the Twins snuck one by everybody there. They also had a guy pitch the last inning, former Royals prospect Scott Blewett, which Blewett might be, in a way, the most appropriate and inappropriate name for a relief pitcher that I've ever heard. He's only 27, so maybe he's got a future left. But he had a couple strikeouts, so he's a big dude. Maybe Scott Blewett will, he won't blow it for the Twins. Maybe he'll blow it for St. Paul.
Well, Caleb Bushley took the loss. Blewett pitched after him, so not true to form. But I did recall that. I was curious because I don't remember the Twins signing him, so I don't remember hearing that news.
Sneaky. There's so many transactions. You never know. These teams are always adding people. Did you see the Angels dugout the other day? There were 300 people in the dugout. It was a sea of red.
You say Angels?
Yeah, Angels. These teams just have so many players, and nobody knows. They come in dark of night. They add them to the roster. They don't add them to the roster. They're pitching out of the bullpen. Who knows if they're these are licensed ball players or not? There's so many guys in spring training. You never know when it's going to end. And the Angels literally had like 75 guys in the dugout the other day. And it was crazy. And it looked like the fire marshal should have been called.
They released Francisco Mejia earlier today, so maybe 74 guys now. But what's that?
Point taken.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what happened. I went to, before we go to break, I went to an Angels spring training game on the Fangraphs trip back in, I want to say 2014, so maybe 10 years ago now already. But it was the year that the Diamondbacks signed the Cuban third baseman because he was making his debut. But I can't think of his name off the top of my head. And
it's not Rusney Castillo, but it's someone like that.
Yep. And there was literally a power box at the stadium covered in bees. Just bees. Tempe Diablo. And the game was delayed for like 50 minutes. And what stunk was we all had to catch our flights out of there. So we had to like hop in a van with Dan Farnsworth super quick in like the 6th inning. But what struck me was like players leaving during the game, like just walking down the line and leaving between innings. Like
culture, the look of spring training games is very different. It's funny.
Yasmani Tomas.
Yasmani Tomas, yeah.
Okay. Hey, we're
going to take for a moment there. I saw it and I'm like, that's who it is, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Let's take a quick pause. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about Cody Bellinger, who did not sign with the Twins, if people haven't heard yet. Twins interested in a utility infield outfield type, and something interesting about the initial talks between the Twins and Mariners in trade discussions for Jorge Polanco. But first, a message. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We are into the second half. Timberwolves 2 games in, win and a loss. Tough loss against the Bucks, but come back and absolutely squash the Nets, who are pretty bad. Anyway, if you want to get buckets right now, new customers are getting $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So if you're brand new to FanDuel, there's no better time than the present to jump right in. Don't dump right in, just jump right in. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. I can't possibly tell you every option you have before the end of the show, let alone this spot. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Again, $150 if your bet wins, Dave Brown. That is tremendous, but got to go check them out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, Dave,
if I signed up 10 times for FanDuel, would I get $1,000 plus the extra money there for math?
I think it's $1,500, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to probably, we don't want to give people the idea of how to skirt the rules, but different email address. I don't know. We'll have to have someone else.
VPN, different email address. We're in business.
Oh yeah. We're locked on incarceration is what's going to be if we get caught doing this stuff. But
locked up twins. Locked up twins was right there.
It was right there, and we missed it. Report surfacing in the Spokesman. I think it's the Spokane Spokesman. I think that's a Twins. Sure. Twins targeted Brian Wu and Mr. Bryce Miller in initial trade conversations. Sounds as though, believe it or not, Julio Rodriguez was instrumental in neither of those guys being traded. Now, as you were.
His fault, I said, Julio, for the Twins not getting one of the youngsters, one of the young right-handers.
Yeah, well, Twins end up with Desclafani, Topa, Gabby Gonzalez, and man, I can't remember the reliever's name now. It's completely slipped my mind. Or pitcher. But nevertheless, they went for a quantity over quality approach. And not that the quality was bad, but it was just interesting to see, like, Twins targeting these guys tells me that while they got Desclafani, I still think they have their sights on a young, controllable-ish type starter. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen before the season starts, even though I've maintained I don't think they're done. However, I think it's still at the forefront of their to-do list. And they have a to-do list that never, ever is completely empty. It's just like yours or mine. I don't know. I mean, I think it was interesting to hear that those were the two guys they targeted. This is a rotation that's deep with George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, and then these two guys. Like, maybe you could flip one of those guys for some offensive help, but they resisted.
I am not surprised that this story came out. If you look back at the transcripts of our shows leading up to the actual trade, when we were speculating on what it was they were after, we were thinking and hoping and wishing and praying that one of those guys, Bryce Miller or Wu, probably one of those two guys, was the main piece coming back. I've got a cough drop in. Just don't.
Rick Flair's favorite pitcher.
Hacking. I'm going to hit the mute button and never go back.
Could you imagine, though, a pitcher named Wu pitching for the Twins? Ric Flair went to the University of Minnesota, and his adopted family was in the Twin Cities. I mean, that's synergy, man. It's like when Kevin Garnett came back to the Wolves, they played the song Homecoming. Well, Homecoming is Kanye rapping about Chicago, the Windy City. He calls her Windy. Kevin Garnett's from Chicago. Like, synergy, man. Synergy. That's what we would have had.
Kevin Garnett borrowed Chicago, though. He's actually from South Carolina, but he came to Chicago for school, for high school.
Very good academy.
Very good academy. The Admirals, the Rear Admirals.
Very good academy, yep.
So we were thinking Brian Wu or Bryce Miller originally in the Polanco deal. And maybe, I don't know if I verbalized it or not, I was like, I wonder if it's coming down to, well, Wu or Miller or like a package of four guys, like, lesser talents or more expensive or whatever. And that's, like you said, what they ended up getting. Here's the thing about what the Twins front office, I think, are trying to do. This, the whole thing about how they need a number two starter, I think we're all in agreement. I think they think that. I don't know that Brian Wu or Bryce Miller are that necessarily. I don't know if they are going to come in this year and produce like Sonny Gray did last year. I'm not sure.
It's probably like Edward Cabrera from the Marlins. Like, he'd be buying on potential.
Yes. I think, but the Twins always have, smartly, I think, a foot or an eye on the future and developing and what's going to happen next year and the year after. It would have been smart for them to come up with one of those kinds of pitchers in the deal. It didn't work out. Apparently, Julio Rodriguez nixed it. We're going to have to find out about where Julio shops and bother him, stalk him for payback. But if it's still a trade that I think is probably got a good chance of working out for the Twins anyway, even if it's not what they originally went in trying to get.
Yeah, honestly, probably going to work for both because Jorge Polanco is an underappreciated, underrated dude. Like, he can play. The guy can play, and they're going to love him. Quickly, I need you to explain something to me here. Now, Matt Cantorino, Twins pitching prospect. You've talked about him being one of your dark horses to help this team, I think, in the bullpen. Who knows? I mean, he's got kind of a high-effort delivery, so we'll see what happens. But the story with him this spring is that he has introduced Settlers of Catan to the clubhouse. I do not get Settlers of Catan. It's like been on Parks and Rec where they're all fawning over Lil Sebastian, and I'm like, I don't get it. I have no understanding of why Catan is so galvanizing. Like, my wife loves playing it with her mom. They live in town, so they get to play it all the time. But it does nothing for me. And at the same time, there's stories abound of him and Brent Hedrick playing either Azul or Catan. And so now Catan, a Minnesota company, tweeted to say, hey, we can send a stack of games. So they're getting a care package down at, I would assume, Fort Myers.
You know, you've made reference to 2 or 3 things that I don't understand. I feel like, do you remember the Saturday Night Live skit with Phil Hartman as Frank Sinatra, not understanding what Chris Rock or Billy Idol were saying? I can't understand a word. Is this Settlers of Catan? I'm imagining like druids walking around in old hoodies up to no good. I don't know what's going on. I don't necessarily like it. I'm afraid of it. I don't understand it. I feel left out. I'm hurt by it. I think we're all in danger. I don't want to talk about it too much because they're going to get me. So that's what I think of the Settlers of Catan. Is this like a board game?
Yeah. Yeah. And it reminds me a little of like when I was in high school and the kids were playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I was kind of like, I was friends with the athletes, but I was also friends with like everybody. And so like one of my friends that I actually lived near for a while, he's like, you got to try this. And I was at his birthday party. I'm like, this sucks. And I don't want to offend anybody's sensibilities if they're watching the show, but I literally had my character abandoned, and I can't tell if Dave is laughing, coughing, crying, or all of the above. But like, yeah, the game did absolutely nothing for me. And I'm like, this sucks. So my character abandoned and whatever. But I just don't get it. It's not for me. It's just not for me.
Day 40 of my cough. I think my problem is I'm not used to playing board games. I'm just the correct age when like Atari came out. So it was like, we could do board games or we could do this fun thing on TV. So I kind of went that way. And I don't play board games anymore or Atari anymore. So I'm kind of like caught in that netherworld where, like you were friends with everybody. And I feel like maybe I'm friends with nobody. So we're similar, opposite sides of the same coin. Oh no! So I'm glad they have these interests. Are there meetings with the Catanites? I don't know. Is it going to take up time when they should be out in the bullpen or shagging flies? Is that something that we can complain about here on Twitter? I hope so.
Yeah, well, most likely. Let's take a quick second. We're going to do a word from our friends at eBay Motors, and then we're going to come full circle with the potential of me being a soothsayer. Wow, what was that?
Sorry.
4 years ago, I predicted that this guy would be a twin. And now it sounds like there's at least a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. But first, eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the trophy for you, and it's also what keeps your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Whether you want a supercharger, roof rack, exhaust kit, LED headlights, or more, it doesn't matter. Speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your cash is coming right back to you. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. This seemed like a comedy act, like a cartoon comedy act where I'm talking in the screen over. You are like, it's almost like when people would drown in cartoons and they do like the 3, 2, 1, and like, or like when they're counting. Yeah, I can't get my fingers. Or like when they would count the sleeper hold and the arm would drop twice. Yep, exactly. That's kind of the vibe I got. But good to see that you're still with us.
I'm going to cough up a free agent here.
Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic is stating that there are 4 teams in the running for Kike Hernandez. And a big issue with him coming to the Twins is you better learn how to spell his name.
Don't misplace the accent mark. Use
Tilde,
it.
you're right? A tilde?
No, that's not a tilde.
Ah,
Tilde's over an N to make it an actual different letter.
Enye.
Enye, yeah.
Okay. That's
It's
a
just an
tilde.
accent mark. Or you could call him Enrique, which is his mama named him Enrique. I'm going to call him Enrique. Then you don't get into any bad words that you don't want to get into if you call him by the short name.
Yeah. And so the other 3 teams are all California-based. You got the Padres, Giants, and Angels.
All could be California-based.
Seriously, no doubt. But Padres have basically a barren wasteland in the outfield. Although I think is James Wood had like a crazy game today with a couple homers in spring training. So who knows if he could force his way into that conversation.
Isn't he on the Nationals?
No, that was part of the – or no, maybe I am misremembering. He was the trade from – never mind. Strike it from the –
Tatis out there. They're not that barren.
Yeah, I guess. But at the same time, like it's what is it? Him, Grisham, and Profar?
No, Grisham's on the Yankees, isn't he?
See, so yeah, that's right. So I'm completely out of my mind. It's him and Profar, and like that's it. So because they just brought back Profar on a 1-year deal.
Right.
Anyway, that could be an opportunity for Kike. Giants, Angels, and then your Minnesota Twins are in the conversation. And Dave Brown, getting back to 2020, I have the hashtag Future Twin Kike Hernandez copyrighted and patented. Not any of those things for real, but I was driving the bus to get Kike in Minneapolis 3-4 years ago. Who knows? I could have been very, very, very much a prophet.
Is he from Miami?
That sounds right. It does sound like I want to say he's from Miami, and then obviously has played the bulk of his career.
He's from Puerto Rico. So, I mean, maybe he's passed through Miami.
Yeah. But I mean, so he's been on a California team for much of his career.
Right.
How much weight will that carry? How much will playing time matter? But a good point was raised by Dan Hayes in the article. Kike Hernandez has played as kind of like a super utility, platoon, use him where he can be successful kind of guy. And that's what Rocco Baldelli would most likely do. So he may be amenable to the idea of that role. Of those 4 teams, am I crazy to say the Twins are the best one?
If I told you that I've forgotten already who the other 3 teams are, would you hate it? What are the other 3?
Padres, Giants, Angels.
I have there's definitely one problem there. I don't think any of those 3 teams are going to the playoffs. The Twins are. You know, if Kike wants to get into the postseason, the Twins are the way to go. I was thinking about Kike's been a guy that we've been thinking about and kind of Kikeing the can around. Is that one of the free agents that they're going to bring in? I'm going to start coughing myself. You shouldn't roll your eyes like that. It's not nice. The thing that he can do, like you said, he can play the infield, or he has experience playing the infield and the outfield.
Yep.
None of the other guys that we've talked about them signing has that. So even with a great defensive player like Michael Taylor in the outfield, you're like, well, you're pretty much signing an outfielder there. If X, Y, and Z happens on the Twins roster and you need Kike to go to third or short or second, he could. Yeah. And it's not just the fact that Rocco has this toy that he can play with, the versatility. It's that if something bad happens or if they make a trade or blah, 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 he becomes useful all over the place. Now, last year he didn't hit lefties very well. Typically, he hits them really well. He did have
double hernia surgery.
Which is going to be great with these baseball pants because they show everything. And if you want to see the results of that surgery, there's a
battle of the bulge, right?
Ow. So he's only 32. He's got a good reputation in the clubhouse. He likes bananas. He likes dressing up as a banana.
This is the Vibes team, though. It's the Vibes team. And the fact that one team outside of California has a chance, to me, that's pretty telling. Like, he could stay in Cali and be at the beach and enjoy all the weather all year round.
The Twin Cities are on a coast. It's just the Mississippi River. They're on both sides of it.
Yeah.
So it's just like LA. in that respect. It's much prettier anyway. LA's, I don't think it's all that to look at. But.
He's been to LA. He can go back to LA anytime he wants.
Right.
But
he can play opening day. He'll play opening day against Cole Reagans.
Yep.
In left field. So Wallner doesn't have to play against the lefty. So he's going to start right off the bat. Tell him, if you're trying to persuade him to come to Minnesota, hey, you're going to start the first game of the season. You might not play for another 7 days, but I'm trying to think of who else is in the Royals rotation. But
they don't know yet.
They don't know. Charlie Liebrandt.
Let's Lugo.
So
Polito Pichardo, Runelvis Hernandez. I can go all night.
Right.
But I won't.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
It would make some sense. He's not as, Adam Duvall at his best will be a little more potent offensively. Michael Taylor will be a better defensive outfielder. And there's a couple and they already have guys like, who can play second base or left field or shortstop.
Yep.
They do. It would be a little redundant, but they do need a right-handed hitter. They do need a guy who can hit lefties, and he gives them options now and down the road. I can see how it would make sense to sign. I would be excited about it. Plus, he likes to dress up as a banana. Look it up.
30 seconds or less. Do you think Bellinger's deal will lead to Snell, Montgomery, or Chapman signing a short-term deal with opt-outs?
Well, some of it because, Boris is not as busy now with, Bellinger, and he's got to get those other guys signed. I wonder if Chapman's kind of boxed in a little bit. Snell, has a little more freedom, and Chapman's kind of like he's going to if he doesn't sign a long-term deal, it's going to cost him money just because of his position. So I think that's too bad for him.
I really think the Twins should get back in on Jordan Montgomery or get in on him. But hey, we're out of time. This has been Locked On Twins. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you